My father took every penny I'd saved for 10 years to pay for my brother's wedding, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You don't need it. Women like you don't get married." So I showed up at that wedding with news that made him choke on every word. If you've ever been dismissed by your own family just because you're not married yet, stay with me. I promise you, what happened next will show you that sometimes justice comes in the most unexpected ways. Stick around until the end to see what happened to the people who underestimated me. My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old, and for the longest time, I thought being a good daughter meant putting everyone else first. I was wrong, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all started. I was 15 when Mom died. Breast cancer. It happened fast, too fast. One day she was complaining about being tired, and 6 months later, she was gone. Dad was devastated. He'd built his whole world around her, and when she left, he just collapsed inward. That left me and my little brother Jake. He was 11. Just a kid who'd lost his mom and didn't understand why the world had become so dark and quiet. Someone had to hold things together. Dad was working double shifts at the plant just to keep the lights on and pay off Mom's medical bills. So I became the one who made sure Jake did his homework, who packed lunches, who signed permission slips. I had a full scholarship to Northwestern. Computer science. It was supposed to be my ticket out, my chance to build something of my own. But 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, Dad sat me down at the kitchen table. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, his hands shaking slightly as he held his coffee mug. "Sarah," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I don't know how to ask you this." I already knew what was coming. I could feel it in my bones. "We can't afford it," he continued. "Even with the scholarship, there's room and board, books, all of it. And Jake, he needs someone here. I'm working all the time. I can't leave him alone." I deferred for a year. Then that year became 2. Then I just stopped thinking about Northwestern altogether and got a job at a local tech startup. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd go back to school eventually. But Jake needed braces. The roof needed repairs. Dad's truck broke down. The startup grew. I was good at what I did. Really good. By the time I was 25, I was making decent money as a software engineer. Not Silicon Valley money, but enough. Enough to finally start saving. Enough to maybe finally think about my own future. I opened a savings account. Every month, like clockwork, I put away as much as I could. $500. Sometimes $1,000 when I got a bonus. I watched that number grow, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. It became a source of quiet pride. Proof that I hadn't wasted all those years. Proof that I could still build something for myself. Dad suggested I add his name to the account. "Just in case something happens to you," he said. "It'll be easier if it's accessible." I was 27 and trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? So I did it. Meanwhile, Jake sailed through college on the money I'd helped save. He studied marketing at State, joined a fraternity, posted pictures of parties and football games on Instagram. He graduated, got a decent job at a marketing firm, and suddenly he was the golden boy. Everything came easy to him. He was charming, good-looking in that effortless way some guys are, always knew what to say to make people like him. I was proud of him. Really, I was. He'd turned out okay despite everything we'd been through. He had his whole life ahead of him. Then there was me. I worked, I paid bills. I sent money home every month because Dad still struggled, because the plant had cut his hours, because there was always something. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious. There was never time, never space in my life for anything that was just mine. When I was 29, I met David. He worked in venture capital, had kind eyes, and this way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We met at a tech conference, started talking about AI ethics over terrible conference coffee, and didn't stop for 4 hours. He asked for my number. I gave it to him. For 3 years, David was the best part of my life. He never complained when I had to cancel plans because Dad needed help or Jake needed a ride somewhere. He was patient, understanding. He said he loved that I cared so much about my family, until the day he asked me to move to Boston with him. He'd gotten an incredible opportunity to start his own firm. He wanted me there. wanted us to finally start building something together. I said no. Dad needed me. Jake was going through a rough patch at work. I couldn't just leave. David looked at me across the table at the restaurant where he'd planned to celebrate our future together, and I watched something break behind his eyes. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I love you, but I can't compete with your sense of obligation. You're not helping them, you're disappearing into them." He left 2 weeks later. I told myself it was for the best. That family came first. That's what Mom would have wanted. I was 32 and alone, with $45,000 in a savings account I shared with my father. I told myself it was enough, that I'd done the right thing, that this was what love looked like. Then Jake met Madison. She was everything Jake thought he wanted. Beautiful, obviously. But more than that, she had money. Real money. Her father owned a chain of car dealerships across 3 states. She was an influencer with 200,000 followers, posting pictures of her morning lattes and designer handbags. They'd been dating 6 months when Jake called me, practically vibrating with excitement. "I proposed," he shouted into the phone. "She said yes. I'm getting married, Sarah." I was happy for him. Of course I was. My little brother was in love. "That's amazing, Jake. Congratulations." "Listen, we're having an engagement party next month. Madison wants to do it right. Her parents are going all out. This is going to be huge." Over the next few weeks, I watched as wedding fever consumed everyone. Jake was on cloud 9, constantly on the phone planning things I couldn't keep track of. Madison wanted 200 guests. She wanted the ceremony at a 5-star resort 2 hours away. She wanted a designer dress, a live band, and a menu that sounded like something from a Michelin-starred restaurant. The budget, I learned, was $60,000. Madison's family would pay for half. But Jake explained to Dad and me over dinner one night, his voice taking on an edge of desperation. "Her dad says it's important that we match them, that it shows respect, that we're equals." Dad's face went pale. Jake made decent money, but he'd only been working for 4 years. He had student loans, car payments, and an expensive apartment. He didn't have $30,000. "I'll figure it out," Jake said. But the way he looked at Dad, and then at me, made my stomach turn. That's when Dad's attitude toward me started to change. "You're 32 and still single," he said one night, completely out of nowhere. We were washing dishes. His tone was casual, but there was something sharp underneath. "Don't you think it's time you thought about settling down?" "I'm focused on my career right now," I said, which was partially true. I'd been up for a promotion. "Career," he repeated like the word tasted sour. "Jake's building a life. A real life, with a family. That's what matters." I didn't respond, just kept washing dishes. "You know, Jake needs help with this wedding," Dad continued. "It's a big expense. You're his sister. Family helps family." There it was. "I help all the time, Dad," I said quietly. "But this is different. This is important. This is Jake's future." I wanted to ask what about my future, but I didn't, because I already knew the answer. Jake started treating me differently too. Where before he'd at least pretended gratitude for everything I'd done, now there was this undercurrent of resentment, like I was somehow in the way of his perfect new life. "You know what Madison said?" He told me one afternoon when I dropped off some old furniture he wanted for his apartment. "She said it's weird that you're still so involved in our lives, that you're 32 and don't have your own thing going on." His words hit like a slap. I have my own thing going on, Jake. I have a career. I have a life. "Do you, though?" He looked at me with something like pity. "You're always alone. You never post anything on social media except work stuff. When's the last time you went on a date?" "David and I broke up less than a year ago." "Yeah, and before that, you were too busy playing mom to me to actually build anything real with him." He said it like it was my fault, like I was the problem. I left without saying anything else. What could I say? Part of me wondered if he was right. The weeks passed. Jake and Madison's wedding plans grew bigger and more elaborate. The tension in Dad's house grew thicker, and then I got the email from my bank. Transaction alert, $40,000 withdrawn from account ending in 4782. My heart stopped. That was our joint account. My account. I called the bank immediately, hands shaking. Yes, ma'am, that withdrawal was authorized by the secondary account holder, the representative said. Your father. He came in 2 days ago with proper identification. Everything was processed correctly. I hung up and immediately called Dad. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, "Did you take $40,000 out of our account?" No response. I called Jake. He answered on the first ring, sounding distracted. What's up? Did Dad give you money? Yeah, actually. He's helping with the wedding. It's amazing. He came through for me. There was genuine warmth in his voice, like Dad was a hero. Why? That was my money, Jake. Silence. Then, it's a joint account, Sarah. It's family money. I saved that for 10 years. Look, I gotta go. Madison and I are meeting with the caterer. He hung up. I sat there in my apartment, phone in my hand, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. I checked Instagram. Jake had posted a story 3 hours ago, a picture of him and Dad at the resort where the wedding would be held, signing papers. The caption, "Best dad ever. Making dreams come true." I drove to Dad's house. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. He was in the living room watching TV like nothing had happened. He looked up when I walked in, and for just a second I saw guilt flash across his face before he composed himself. "We need to talk," I said. "Sarah, sit down." "You took $40,000 out of my account without asking me." He muted the TV. "It's our account, and Jake needed help. This wedding is important to him, to his future. That money was for my future." My voice cracked. I never yelled. But this was too much. "You don't need that much money," Dad said, his voice maddeningly calm. "You live alone. You don't have expensive taste. What are you saving for anyway?" "I'm saving because I spent the last 17 years putting my life on hold for this family. And that's what family does." He stood up now, his own anger rising. "Jake is starting a life. A real life with a wife and someday kids. He needs support. You're 32 years old, Sarah. You live alone in a one-bedroom apartment. What exactly are you building here?" The words hung in the air like poison. "I'm building my own life," I said, but my voice sounded small, even to my own ears. Dad's expression shifted to something like pity mixed with contempt. "Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're just existing. Jake is making something of himself. He found someone who loves him, someone who wants to build a future with him." "I had that," I shouted. "I had David and I gave him up because you needed me here." "That was your choice," Dad shot back. "And honestly, Sarah, it probably worked out for the best. You're 32. You're set in your ways. He hesitated, then said it anyway. "You're difficult. You're stubborn. You don't know how to compromise. Women like you don't get married." The room went silent. Even Dad looked slightly surprised that he'd said it out loud. "Women like me," I repeated numbly. "I just mean—" He backpedaled, but the damage was done. "You're too independent, too focused on work. Men want someone who needs them. You don't need anyone." "So I don't deserve my own money because I'm not married?" "The money is better used helping Jake start his marriage than sitting in an account for whatever it is you think you're going to do with it." He sat back down, picked up the remote. "The venue needed a deposit. The wedding is in 6 weeks. It's done, Sarah. Move on." I stood there, rooted to the spot, feeling like I was watching this happen to someone else. This couldn't be real. My father couldn't really be saying this. Jake walked in then, must have heard part of our conversation from the hallway. "Come on, Sarah," he said, his tone almost condescending. "Don't be selfish. I'm getting married. I need help. You have a good job. You'll save more money." "What's the big deal?" "The big deal is that's 10 years of my life. And you'll have plenty more years to save again," Jake said. "But I only get married once." "Well, hopefully." He laughed at his own joke. "Look, I know your life isn't where you probably wanted it to be at this point. But that doesn't mean you should stand in the way of mine." Something inside me shattered. "You're right," I said quietly. "Women like me don't get married. Women like me sacrifice everything for our families and get called selfish when we finally ask for something back. I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard Jake say to Dad, "She'll get over it. She always does." That night, I barely slept. I called my bank again, asked about legal options. They were sympathetic but clear. Joint account, legal withdrawal, nothing I could do. I called a lawyer friend. Same answer. The money was gone. I thought about calling Jake, demanding at least some of it back. But I already knew what he'd say. What they'd both say, that I was being unreasonable, that family comes first, that I was selfish for even asking. 2 weeks later, the wedding invitation arrived in the mail. Heavy cardstock, expensive. My name was printed on the envelope, but when I opened it, I noticed something immediately. I wasn't in the wedding party. Jake had 4 groomsmen, all his college buddies. Madison had 6 bridesmaids, including girls she'd met 6 months ago. I called him. "I'm not a bridesmaid?" "Madison wanted to keep the wedding party to people she's closest with," he said. "You understand." "I'm your sister." "Yeah, and you'll be there. As a guest. It's fine." "Where am I sitting?" Pause. "At one of the back tables, near the kitchen. It was how the seating worked out. Don't read into it." But I did read into it. I read every word of what my family was trying to tell me. You don't matter. Not really. The wedding was in 4 weeks. I stopped answering Dad's texts, stopped showing up for the family dinners Jake's fiancé kept planning. I pulled away, and the strangest thing happened. No one seemed to notice. Or if they did, they didn't care. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a LinkedIn message that would change everything. "Hi, Sarah. I don't know if you remember me, but this is David Chin. I'm back in town opening a new office for my firm. I'd love to catch up if you have time. I owe you an apology for how things ended between us." I stared at that message for a full minute. David, the man I'd let walk away because I was too tangled up in family obligation to choose my own happiness. I almost didn't respond. What was the point? But something made me type back, "I remember. Coffee sometime?" We met 2 days later at a cafe downtown. He looked good, better than good. Success suited him. His company had IPO'd 6 months ago. He was on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Everything he'd dreamed about had come true. "You look great," he said when he saw me, and I could tell he meant it. "You too. Successful looks good on you." We talked for hours, about his company, about Boston, about the last 3 years. He was careful not to bring up our breakup, but eventually I did. "I'm sorry," I said. "You were right. About everything." "I wasn't trying to be right," he said gently. "I just couldn't watch you disappear anymore." "Well, for what it's worth, I've done a lot of disappearing since then." The words came tumbling out before I could stop them. The whole story. Jake, the wedding, the money, Dad's words. All of it. David's expression shifted from sympathy to something harder. Anger. "They stole from you." "It was a joint account. Legally, I don't care about legally. Morally, they stole from you." He leaned forward. "Sarah, you know that's not okay, right? You know you deserve better than that?" I felt tears prickling at my eyes. "Women like me don't get married, apparently, so I guess I don't need money for a future anyway." "He said that to you?" David's voice was sharp. "Your father said that?" I nodded. He shook his head. "Sarah, you're brilliant. You're talented. You're one of the best engineers I've ever met. Any man would be lucky to—" I was lucky. I was an idiot for leaving, but I was lucky to have the time with you that I did. "You weren't an idiot. You were smart to get out." "No," he said firmly. "I should have fought harder. I should have made you see that you were worth more than being someone's safety net." We sat in silence for a moment. Then David said, "When's the wedding?" 3 weeks. "Are you going?" "I don't know. They don't really want me there. I'm not in the wedding party. I'm seated at the worst table in the venue. I'm basically just a body filling a seat." David was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What if you went anyway, but on your terms?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if you showed them exactly how wrong they are about you?" And that's when the plan started to form. It wasn't revenge exactly. It was just, Truth. The truth they'd been too blind to see. The resort where they're having the wedding, David said slowly. I know the owner. We did business together a few years ago. Okay. And I'm assuming they don't know about the job offer you got last month? I'd told him earlier about Goldman Sachs reaching out, about the director of engineering position in New York, about the salary that made my current income look like pocket change. I'd been putting off the final interview because what? Because some part of me still felt obligated to stay close to family that didn't value me? No one knows about that, I said. David smiled, not a cruel smile. Something else. Something that looked like justice. What if they did? What if they found out at the wedding in front of everyone? David, hear me out. You go to the wedding. I go with you, not as your boyfriend, just as a colleague. Someone who knows your worth professionally. And at some point during the reception, we make sure your father and brother know exactly what women like you are capable of. I should have said no. Should have told him it was petty, that I was better than that. But the truth was, I was tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of my worth being measured by a ring on my finger instead of everything I'd accomplished. Tired of shrinking myself to make room for people who couldn't even bother to save me a decent seat at a wedding I'd indirectly paid for. Okay, I said. Let's do it. David reached across the table and took my hand. Sarah, for what it's worth, I never stopped caring about you. If you need someone in your corner, I'm here. Something in my chest loosened. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could breathe. I need to schedule that final interview with Goldman, I said. Do it and nail it. Show them what they're getting. I did the interview 2 days later. Video call with the leadership team. They asked tough questions about scaling systems, about managing large teams, about my vision for their engineering department. I answered every single one with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. They offered me the job on the spot. Director of Engineering, base salary of $280,000 plus equity plus bonuses, start date in 3 months. I accepted. I didn't tell Dad, didn't tell Jake. Let them think I was still the spinster sister sitting in her one-bedroom apartment, going nowhere. Let them think their words had landed, that I believed them. The wedding was in 1 week. I bought a dress, nothing flashy but elegant. Professional. I confirmed with David. He'd arranged everything with the resort owner, who apparently thought the whole situation was appalling and was more than happy to help us make a statement. This is going to work, David said when we met for coffee 3 days before the wedding. But Sarah, I need you to be sure. Once we do this, there's no taking it back. Your relationship with your family will change permanently. I thought about that, about Dad's words, about Jake's dismissal, about 17 years of putting myself last and being told it still wasn't enough. It's already changed, I said. They just don't know it yet. The day of the wedding arrived with perfect weather. Sunny, 75 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, the kind of day that made you believe good things were possible. I pulled up to the resort at exactly 3:15, 15 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to start. David met me in the parking lot, looking sharp in a tailored navy suit. He smiled when he saw me, and I felt a surge of gratitude that he was here. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. We walked toward the main entrance together. The resort was stunning, all white columns and manicured gardens, with a view of the lake that probably cost a fortune to secure. My $40,000 at work. Inside, the lobby was packed with wedding guests. I recognized some of Jake's college friends, a few distant relatives, and several people I assumed were from Madison's social circle, all designer clothes and expensive watches. Everyone was heading toward the ceremony space, chatting and laughing. No one noticed me. No one ever did. David and I bypassed the ceremony entirely. We went straight to the bar area that overlooked the reception hall, where the owner, a silver-haired man named Richard, greeted David like an old friend. David, good to see you, and this must be Sarah. He shook my hand warmly. I have to say, when David told me your story, I was appalled. Family should lift you up, not tear you down. Thank you for helping with this, I said. My pleasure. Your brother's party has the main reception hall reserved starting at 5. You two can stay here, enjoy some drinks, and when you're ready to make your entrance, just say the word. We settled at the bar with a view of the ceremony space through the windows. I watched as guests filed in, taking their seats on either side of the aisle. I spotted Dad in the front row, wearing a suit I'd helped him buy 2 years ago for a funeral. He looked proud, happy. Jake stood at the altar with his groomsmen, laughing at something one of them said. None of them looked toward the back of the room, where I should have been sitting. None of them seemed to notice I wasn't there. They don't even realize you're not at the ceremony, David observed quietly. No, I said. They don't. The ceremony itself was beautiful, I had to admit. Madison looked stunning in a dress that probably cost more than my car. Jake looked genuinely happy. Dad cried during the vows. It was everything a wedding should be, romantic, emotional, full of promise. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt too much, and it had all gone numb. The ceremony ended. Guests migrated to the cocktail hour. David and I stayed at the bar, watching. After about an hour, everyone moved into the main reception hall. I finally saw my assigned table through the doorway, tucked in the far back corner near the kitchen entrance, partially blocked by a decorative column. Even from here, I could hear the clatter of dishes and servers shouting orders. That's where they put you? David's voice was tight with anger. That's where they put me. The reception kicked off with the typical traditions. First dance, toasts from the best man and maid of honor, dinner service. We watched it all from our perch at the bar. Richard kept us supplied with appetizers and drinks, refusing to let us pay for anything. This is on the house, he insisted. Anyone who pays for a wedding and gets treated like this deserves at least some free food. Around 7 o'clock, Dad got up to make his speech. I leaned forward to hear. I'm so proud of my son today, he began, his voice thick with emotion. Jake has grown into an amazing man. He's worked so hard to get where he is, and he's found a partner who will push him to be even better. As a father, all you want is to see your children happy and settled. Jake, you've made that happen, and I couldn't be prouder. Children. Plural? But he only talked about one. I know his mother is looking down on him today, bursting with pride. We've been through a lot as a family, but we've always stuck together. We've always supported each other. That's what family means, being there when it counts. The irony was almost painful. Jake needed help making this day happen, and I was honored to contribute. That's what fathers do. We make our children's dreams come true. So here's to Jake and Madison. May your life together be everything you've dreamed of and more. Everyone applauded. Jake hugged Dad, both of them tearing up. It was a touching moment. No one mentioned where the money came from. No one mentioned who'd actually made most of it possible. That's my cue, I said to David. He nodded. Richard's getting the mic ready. You sure about this? Completely. We made our way to the entrance of the reception hall. Some guests had noticed us by now. There were a few curious glances, some whispers. I saw Dad spot me, confusion crossing his face. Jake saw me too, and his expression darkened immediately. But we didn't head to my assigned table. We walked confidently toward the front of the room, and Richard was already at the microphone. Excuse me, everyone, he said, his voice carrying easily over the din. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening celebrating Jake and Madison. Before we continue with the evening's festivities, I'd like to invite a very special guest to say a few words. He's a dear friend and incredibly successful entrepreneur. Please welcome David Chen, CEO of Tech Venture Solutions. The room quieted. David stepped up to the microphone with the ease of someone who'd given 100 speeches. I stayed slightly behind him, my heart hammering. Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the interruption, but I promise this will be worth your time. David smiled, completely at ease. I'm David Chen. For those who don't know me, I run a venture capital firm in Boston, but that's not why I'm here tonight. Jake was standing now, his face red. Dad had half risen from his seat. Madison looked confused, whispering urgently to her mother. I'm here because I need to tell you about someone very special. Someone who I believe deserves recognition, especially today. David turned slightly, gesturing to me. Sarah, would you join me? Every eye in the room turned to me as I walked forward. I could feel my pulse in my throat, but I kept my head high. When I reached David's side, he handed me the microphone. For a second, I couldn't speak. Then I found my voice. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah, Jake's sister. I paused. Though I'm guessing some of you forgot I existed, given that I'm seated next to the kitchen. A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. I don't want to take away from Jake and Madison's special day, I continued. But I think there's some context people should have. See, 7 years ago, I gave up a full scholarship to Northwestern to stay home and help raise Jake after our mom died. I was 15 when she passed. Jake was 11. Someone had to step up. The room was dead silent now. Even Jake had stopped moving. I deferred my dreams. I worked. I saved. I sent money home every month for over a decade. I helped pay for Jake's college, his car, his apartment. I did it because that's what you do for family, right? You sacrifice. You show up. You help make their dreams come true. Dad's face had gone pale. 3 months ago, my father withdrew $40,000 from our joint savings account, money I'd saved over 10 years, to help pay for this beautiful wedding you're all enjoying tonight. He didn't ask me. He just took it. I let that sink in. And when I questioned him about it, he looked me in the eye and said, You don't need it. Women like you don't get married. Gasps. Actual gasps from the crowd. Madison's mother's hand flew to her mouth. Several guests were shaking their heads. So I just wanted to say, Dad, Jake, thank you for teaching me what I'm worth to this family. Thank you for showing me that no amount of sacrifice will ever be enough. And thank you for motivating me to finally choose myself. I turned to David, who was watching me with something like pride in his eyes. David, you want to share the news? He took the microphone back. Gladly. Sarah, as of 3 days ago, accepted a position as Director of Engineering at Goldman Sachs in New York City. Her starting salary is $280,000 per year, plus equity and performance bonuses. She starts in 3 months. The silence that followed was deafening. So, to address your comment, sir, David looked directly at Dad. About women like Sarah not getting married? You're right about one thing. Sarah doesn't need to get married to prove her worth. But if she wanted to, she'd have options. Many options. She's brilliant, successful, and worth more than you ever gave her credit for. David looked back at the crowd. I know Sarah. I've known her for years. She's one of the most talented engineers I've ever met. When I heard what happened, I couldn't stay silent. So I'm here to say, Sarah, if you'll have me in your life in any capacity, friend, colleague, or something more, I'd be honored, because you deserve people who see your value. He handed the microphone back to me. My hands were shaking. I'm not telling you this to hurt anyone, I said, my voice softer now. I'm telling you because for too long I believed what you said about me, that I wasn't enough, that my dreams didn't matter as much as everyone else's. But I'm done believing that. I looked at Jake, then at Dad. I hope you have a beautiful marriage, Jake. I really do, but I won't be there to watch it. I'll be in New York, building the life I should have built years ago. I set the microphone down on the nearest table and walked out. David followed immediately. Behind us, the reception hall erupted in chaos, voices overlapping, chairs scraping, someone shouting my name. We didn't stop. We walked straight through the lobby, out to the parking lot, and didn't speak until we reached my car. Then I started laughing. Not happy laughter, something wilder, almost hysterical. David pulled me into a hug, and I realized I was crying too. You did it, he said. You told the truth. I can't believe I just did that. You were amazing. My phone started ringing. Dad. I declined it. It rang again immediately. Jake. Declined. Text messages started flooding in. Dad. Sarah, please come back. We need to talk. Jake. What the hell was that? You ruined my wedding. An aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. Good for you, sweetie. Someone needed to say it. My cousin. That was badass. I turned my phone off entirely. What now? I asked David. Now? He smiled. Now you go home, pack, and start your new life. The one you deserve. Will you? I hesitated. Will you be part of it? Sarah, I never stopped caring about you. I'm not asking you to figure everything out right now, but yes, I want to be part of your life, however that looks. We stood there in the parking lot while the sun set behind the resort, and for the first time in 17 years, I felt free. The next week was chaos. Dad called 73 times. I know because I finally turned my phone back on and saw the call log. Jake sent a barrage of text messages that ranged from angry to pleading to accusatory. Madison's mother sent a surprisingly kind email saying she hadn't known the full story and thought I'd shown courage. Several relatives reached out with support. I responded to none of it. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I worked with a realtor to break my lease early. I sorted through 10 years' worth of accumulated life, deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. I formally accepted the Goldman Sachs offer and started preparing for the move. David flew back to Boston but called every day. We talked for hours about everything and nothing, about what we wanted from life, what we'd learned, what we were afraid of. He never pushed, never demanded answers about where we stood. He was just there. 2 weeks after the wedding, Dad showed up at my apartment. I hadn't given him permission, but he'd always had a key. I came home from work to find him sitting on my couch, looking like he'd aged 5 years. "We need to talk," he said. "You need to leave." "Sarah, please." His voice cracked. "Just hear me out." Against my better judgment, I sat down in the chair across from him. 5 minutes. "I'm sorry." He looked at his hands. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see what I was doing to you. I thought I was helping Jake. I thought you were fine because you're so strong, so capable. You never complained. You never asked for anything. I shouldn't have had to ask for basic respect. You're right. You're absolutely right." He finally looked up at me, and I saw tears on his face. "Your mother would be ashamed of me. She would be so angry at how I treated you. You stepped up when she died. You became the parent when I couldn't be, and I repaid you by telling you you weren't enough." "Yeah, you did." "I can't take it back. I can't undo what I said. But Sarah, please believe me when I say I never really thought that. I was trying to justify taking the money. I was trying to make myself feel less guilty. So I told myself you didn't need it as much as Jake, that you'd be fine, that you were too independent to need help. The problem, Dad, is that you believed it enough to say it. You believed it enough to take money that wasn't yours. You believed it enough to seat me at the worst table at a wedding I essentially paid for." He flinched. I know, and I'm sorry. Jake is sorry too." "Is he? Because his messages don't sound sorry. They sound angry that I embarrassed him." Dad was quiet for a moment. "He's young. He doesn't understand yet what he's lost. But he will. When he has kids someday, when he understands what it means to sacrifice for family, he'll understand what you did for him. I don't need his understanding years from now. I needed his respect when it mattered." "I know." Dad wiped his eyes. "Are you really moving to New York?" "Yes, 2 months from now." "That far?" "It's not far enough, honestly, but it's a start." He nodded slowly. Will you ever forgive me?" I thought about that. Really thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe someday. But Dad, even if I forgive you, things can't go back to how they were. I can't be the person who sacrifices everything and gets nothing in return. I can't be invisible in my own family." "I understand." "Do you? Because I don't think you do. You took my money, Dad. You stole from me. And then you justified it by telling me I wasn't worthy of having dreams. That's not something you just apologize away." "What can I do?" His voice was desperate. "Tell me what I can do to make this right." "Nothing. There's nothing you can do. The money's gone. The words are said. The only thing you can do is live with it, just like I have to." He stood up slowly, looking defeated. At the door, he turned back. "I love you, Sarah. I know I didn't show it. I know I failed you, but I love you." "I know," I said. "That's what makes it worse." After he left, I sat in my apartment for a long time, watching the sun set through my window. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "How are you doing?" I typed back, "I'm okay. Actually, I think I might be more than okay." "Good. You deserve to be more than okay." "David?" "Yeah? Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when my own family didn't. Always, Sarah. Always." 6 weeks later, I stood in my new apartment in Manhattan, surrounded by boxes. The place was small, but had incredible light, and I could see the city stretching out below me. A fresh start. A blank canvas. My phone rang. Dad, again. He'd been calling once a week, leaving short messages, never demanding, just present. I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed more time. There was a knock at my door. I opened it to find David standing there with coffee and bagels. "Welcome to New York," he said, grinning. "I took the train down. Thought you might need some help unpacking." "You didn't have to do that." "I know. I wanted to." We spent the day unpacking boxes, hanging pictures, making the space feel like mine. David told me about a new investment his firm was considering. I told him about my first week at Goldman, about my team, about the projects I'd be leading. It felt easy, natural. As the sun started to set, we stood at my window, looking out at the city. "I can't believe I'm really here," I said. "I can. You're exactly where you're supposed to be." "David?" I turned to look at him. "What are we doing?" "What do you want us to be doing?" "I don't know. I don't want to waste any more time. I've wasted so much time already." He set his coffee down and took my hand. "Sarah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for as long as you want me here. We can take it slow. We can take it fast. We can figure it out as we go. But I'm not leaving again, not unless you tell me to." "I'm not going to tell you to leave." "Good." He smiled. "Because I've waited 7 years for a second chance with you, I'm not planning to mess it up. What if I'm still a disaster? What if I'm still too tangled up in family stuff? What if—" He kissed me. Just leaned in and kissed me, gentle and certain, and all my what-ifs dissolved. When we pulled apart, he said, "You're not a disaster. You're someone who loved her family more than they deserved. But you're also someone who finally chose herself. That's not a disaster. That's growth." 2 months passed. I threw myself into my new job and discovered I was good at it, really good. My team respected me. My ideas were heard. I was promoted within 3 months to senior director, with a raise that made my previous salary look like a joke. David and I fell into an easy rhythm. He came to New York every other weekend. I went to Boston on the off weeks. We talked every night. Slowly, carefully, we were building something real. I started seeing a therapist, a woman named Dr. Chen who specialized in family trauma. She helped me understand that setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was necessary. That loving someone didn't mean accepting mistreatment. That I could grieve the family I wanted while accepting the family I had. Dad kept calling. Jake had stopped entirely after I didn't respond to his messages. According to my aunt, Jake and Madison were struggling. The wedding had put them in debt. Madison's parents were disappointed in how Jake's family had treated me and had pulled back their support. The marriage was strained. I felt nothing about that. Not satisfaction, not guilt. Just nothing. Then, 6 months after I moved to New York, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email. An actual, handwritten letter. From Dad. "Dear Sarah, I'm not asking you to write back. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know something. I went to therapy. The week after you moved, I called the number your mother's grief counselor gave me years ago when she died. I should have gone then. I should have dealt with my pain instead of putting it on you. But I didn't. So I'm doing it now. My therapist helped me see what I did to you. Not just taking the money. Everything. I made you a parent when you were a child. I made your needs invisible. I measured your worth by whether you were married instead of everything you accomplished. I failed you in every way a father can fail a daughter. You don't owe me forgiveness. You don't owe me anything. But I want you to know. I see it now. I see what I took from you. I see what I said to you, and I will carry that shame for the rest of my life. Jake is in therapy too now. His marriage is struggling. He's starting to understand what he took for granted, what we both took for granted. You gave up your life for us, and we didn't even save you a decent seat at the table. I hope New York is everything you wanted. I hope you're happy. I hope you know that you deserved all of this and more. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. Dad. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called Dr. Chin. He's in therapy, I told her. He's taking accountability. How does that make you feel? I don't know. Relieved? Sad? Angry that it took me leaving for him to get help? All of those are valid. Do I respond? Do you want to? I thought about it for a long time. Not yet, but maybe someday. That's okay. Healing doesn't have a timeline. A year after the wedding, David and I got engaged, not with a big show or public announcement, just the 2 of us in my apartment after dinner on a random Tuesday. I don't want to wait anymore, he said. I don't want to waste another day not being completely officially yours. Is this a proposal? If you'll have me, no pressure, no timeline, just, will you marry me? Someday? Whenever you're ready? Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes. We told no one for 2 weeks, just kept it to ourselves, this perfect secret. When we finally started sharing the news, my aunt cried with joy. My colleagues congratulated me. My friends were thrilled. I didn't tell Dad, didn't tell Jake. Let them find out from relatives if they wanted to know. They weren't part of this chapter of my life. Not yet. Maybe not ever. 2 years after the wedding that changed everything, I stood in a small garden in upstate New York, wearing a simple ivory dress, holding David's hands while 30 people who actually loved me watched. My aunt stood next to me as my maid of honor, crying happy tears. David's family welcomed me like I'd always belonged. There was no drama, no stolen money, no assigned seating that made me feel less than, just love, just choice, just people who saw my worth. At the reception, David pulled me aside during our first dance. Are you happy? He asked. Deliriously. No regrets? None. Well, maybe one. What's that? I wish I'd chosen myself sooner. He kissed my forehead. You chose yourself exactly when you were ready to. That's all that matters. A month before the wedding, I'd received another letter from Dad, and this time I'd responded. Not with forgiveness. I wasn't there yet. Might never be, but with honesty. Dad, I received your letter. I'm glad you're in therapy. I'm glad you're working on yourself. But I need you to understand. We can't go back. I can't be your daughter the way I was before. I can't sacrifice myself for your comfort. I'm getting married. To David, the man who saw my worth when you couldn't. We're having a small wedding, just close friends and family. You're not invited. Not because I hate you, but because I need this day to be about joy, not obligation. About love, not guilt. Maybe someday we can build something new. A relationship based on mutual respect instead of one-sided sacrifice. But that day isn't today. I hope you understand. Sarah. He'd responded with a single line. I understand. I hope you're happy. You deserve it. Now, 2 years after my life fell apart at my brother's wedding, I finally had the life I'd always deserved, a career that challenged me, a partner who chose me every day, a found family that saw my worth. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't sacrificing myself for anyone else's dreams. The last I heard, Jake and Madison had divorced after 18 months. Jake moved back in with Dad. They both worked to pay off wedding debt from a marriage that didn't last. I heard he was in therapy, working through his own issues, working to understand what he'd taken for granted. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt separate, like that was a different life, a different Sarah. This Sarah, the one standing in a garden in a wedding dress, choosing herself and being chosen in return. She was someone new, someone whole. Ready to start our life together? David asked as our song ended. I've been ready for years, I said. I was just waiting to meet myself first. Women like me do get married, but more importantly, women like me get to choose happiness, get to choose respect, get to choose themselves, and that's worth more than any wedding, any family obligation, any stolen savings account could ever be. Dad was wrong, not about me needing to be married. He was wrong about what I needed at all. I didn't need a husband to prove my worth. I didn't need family approval to know my value. I didn't need anyone's permission to build the life I deserved. I just needed to believe it myself. And now, finally, I did.